everyone! Welcome back to another fun-filled and information-packed lesson of actual English. I am Jennifer Clyde. It's time for lesson 373, and today's topic is Korean Discoveries Part 3. Let's talk about Korean TV and Korean movies. So there are what we call dramas on television, and of course there are Korean films. TV series or dramas and movies, they have become very popular across the world. A lot of TV series, such as dramas, for example, even Korean movies are being exported to so many different countries around the world, which is great news for Korea, right? And it's good to see that there are more and more Korean movies that are being made. So now we have many more opportunities or many more chances to go to the cinema to catch Korean films. They're a great fun, right? Okay, so let's talk about that. As always, let's begin with Actual Talk.
I'm a big fan of Korean movies.
Okay.
Not so much TV, but certainly the movies here.
Do you like movies, like all movies, or just Korean movies?
I like all movies. I'm a bit of a movie buff. I like to go to the cinema. But I must say that Korean movies are really, really cool.
When you go to the cinema, do you like to go by yourself or with your wife or friends?
I must admit,
Yeah.
I like going on my own.
Okay, yeah, I have a friend who enjoys going by himself. He makes movies, and he went to film school. So one thing he does when he travels is he goes and watches a movie in every country that he goes to.
Wow, that's really cool.
I think it's kind of, I don't know, I just seem like, it seems to me like the experience of watching a movie would be the same no matter where you go.
No, I agree with your friend, actually.
Yeah.
When you go to the movie theater and you're on your own, you can really get involved in the movie. And especially with Korean movies, because Korean movies are quite dark.
Okay.
They're usually thrillers, and they usually involve a twist somewhere along the way that you have to pay attention to.
Okay.
Whereas I think Hollywood movies, they kind of spoon feed you the plot.
It's a little predictable sometimes.
It's very predictable, and the good guy always wins in the Hollywood movies.
So are you watching them with English subtitles, or is your Korean that good?
My Korean is not that good, unfortunately. Yeah, I can only watch them with subtitles. I'm getting better at it. And I had a friend who didn't live here in Korea, but he learned Korean purely through watching Korean movies.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe I need to start watching Korean movies.
Yeah, I think we both need to watch more.
All right, how did you enjoy the actual talk conversation between Mary and Martin? I don't think it was too difficult, so I hope that you didn't have much difficulty understanding what these two were talking about. Once again, our topic for today's lesson is Korean TV and movies, so let's take you straight into today's actual talk conversation. Here we go. Martin says, I'm a big fan of Korean movies. Let's take it up to here. We all know this pattern, right? I am a big fan of so-and-so. In this case, we're talking about Korean films, Korean movies. If you say, I'm a big fan of something, you mean that you like it very much. Okay? I love Korean movies. I like Korean movies very much. I am into Korean movies. I'm a big fan of Korean movies. They pretty much all mean the same thing. And then he says, not so much TV, but certainly the movies here. So he says, not so much TV, television, but certainly, definitely, the movies here. So he really is into movies. So he's focusing on Korean films. Now, Mary asks, do you like all movies or just Korean movies? So, all movies or just Korean movies? He says, I like all movies. Aha, so he enjoys watching all different kinds of movies. And he says, I'm a bit of a movie buff. Let's take a look at this word buff. B-U-F-F. He says that he is a movie buff. Okay? Now, if you just take a look at the word buff, B-U-F-F, you can describe someone to be buff Usually, we say that men are buff. Now, buff in that case means very strong and having defined muscles. So, for example, you may go to the gym and you may see plenty of men lifting weights, right? These big muscles, they're very strong looking, they have big muscles, defined muscles. You would describe that kind of person to be buff. Okay, very strong and having defined muscles. But here, okay, we're saying that a person is a movie buff. In this case, buff means something completely different. A movie buff is a type of person that is either addicted to movies or really enjoys going to the cinema, especially on a regular basis. So somebody that really likes movies could be called a movie buff. So he says, I'm a bit of a movie buff, meaning I really enjoy watching movies. I like to go to the cinema, meaning I like to go to the movie theater, same thing. But I must say that Korean movies are really, really cool. So he enjoys watching Korean movies, okay? Now, Mary asks, when you go to the cinema, do you like to go by yourself, meaning alone, or with your wife or friends, or with somebody, such as his wife or friends? What did he say? He said, I must admit. Okay. Admit means to acknowledge or even to confess. Now, you would usually use the word admit to express that you either feel slightly guilty about something or embarrassed about something, okay? You are admitting something, you are acknowledging something or confessing something. That's when you usually use admit. But he says, I must admit, to be honest with you, I like going on my own, which means the same thing as by oneself. I like to go by myself. I like to go on my own, or I like going on my own. I like going by myself. You can also say I like going alone, which means not with anybody else, but just me and myself. Okay. Now, Mary says, I have a friend who enjoys going by himself. Okay. So he enjoys going to the movie or movies by himself as well. He makes movies. Aha, he makes movies. And he went to film school. So he studied film. He went to film school. So one thing he does when he travels is he goes and watches a movie. This is when he travels, meaning perhaps to different parts of the country or to different parts of the world. When he travels, he goes and watches a movie in every country that he goes to. Wonderful. Wow, that's really cool, Martin says. Now, Mary continues. It seems to me like the experience of watching a movie would be the same. She says, it seems to me. So she's saying, in my opinion, it seems to me, I think that the experience of watching a movie would be the same thing, okay? No matter where you go. So she's saying, what's the point of traveling and going to the cinema, okay? Wherever you go, wherever you travel to. Isn't it the same thing to me? Or it seems to me that it would be the same. Now, Martin says, no, I agree with your friend actually. So he's saying, I understand what your friend is doing. I am like him. When you go to the movie theater and you're on your own, you can really get involved in the movie. Okay. Now, let's take a look at to get involved. You can get involved in something or with something. Get involved in. Get involved with is often used. But usually when you say that you get involved in or with something or someone, you're saying that you are being associated. You've become associated with that thing or person, especially emotionally in many cases. Okay? So you're becoming connected or associated with that. So he says you can really get involved in the movie, meaning you can really relate to the movie, especially with Korean movies, okay? Especially with Korean movies because Korean movies are quite dark. All right, let's take a look at this as well. He's talking about Korean films, Korean movies, but what does he mean by Korean movies are dark? Dark? Okay. Let's see, for example, this room, we have a lot of lighting. Lights above me, below me, on the side. So this room is very bright. It's light, okay? It's not dark. But usually if you walk into a movie theater, when the movie is playing already, when the movie is already started, it's going to be pitch dark, okay? It's dark. All the lights are off. We're not just talking about the brightness or the darkness of a room, but we're talking about the way you feel. If movies or Korean movies are dark, you're saying that they tend to be a bit depressing, sad, serious. Imagine walking into a dark room. How would it make you feel? It's dark, so you may feel depressed, sad, gloomy. That's exactly it. So he's saying Korean movies are quite dark. They're quite sensitive, okay? They're quite depressing, sad, gloomy. They're usually thrillers, okay? There are many thrillers, and they usually involve a twist somewhere along the way, okay, that you have to pay attention to. Let's take a look at twist, okay? Twist. To twist something would be to twist something. That's in the verb form. But we're not talking about twist as in verb. We're talking about a twist somewhere in the movie, okay? As in noun. So if twist is used as a noun, especially when talking about a story, okay? We're talking about plot twists, meaning a sudden change in a movie, okay? Or if something completely different happens, that would be a twist, okay? So he's saying that there are dramatic changes, very big changes in the movie somewhere along the way that you have to pay attention to, that you have to watch closely. Whereas I think Hollywood movies, now he's talking about Hollywood movies, they kind of spoon-feed you the plot. So this is the main difference. Now he's talking about Hollywood movies. He says Hollywood movies, they spoon-feed you the plot. Think of the main story, the overall story of the movie, the plot. Spoon-feed? What does that mean? To spoon-feed someone means to, I guess, care for someone just too much, do everything for him or her, so that he or she does not have the knowledge, that he or she does not have the opportunity to learn to do things on his or her own. So a lot of parents, for example, they spoon-feed their children, meaning they do everything for their kids that later on their kids can't learn to do things on their own. Simply put, he's saying Hollywood movies, they easily tell you the plot. They easily help you, I guess, imagine the whole story. They give it to you easily, okay? They spoon-feed you the plot. It's a little predictable sometimes. If something is predictable, pre means what? Before, in advance. So if something is predictable, it means that you can foretell something. You have an understanding of what will happen in advance, beforehand. So she's saying, yeah, it's a little predictable sometimes. You kind of know what's going to happen. Hollywood movies. And Martin says, and the good guy always wins. The good guy always wins in Hollywood movies. But in Korean movies, that's not always the case, right? Now, we're still talking about in Hollywood movies. So, are you watching them with English subtitles, or is your Korean that good? What are subtitles? Subtitles are usually translations of a foreign language, especially if you are watching a foreign film, okay, which is in a foreign language, you will have a translation, okay, usually on the bottom of the screen. That's subtitles. So she asks, do you read them? Do you watch them with English subtitles, or do you understand Korean? Is your Korean that good? Martin says, my Korean is not that good, unfortunately. I can only watch them with subtitles. I'm getting better at it, meaning I'm getting better at understanding Korean. He tells us about a friend. He says, I had a friend who didn't live here in Korea, but he learned Korean purely, meaning 100%, completely through watching Korean movies. So he learned Korean through Korean movies, which is amazing, I think. Wow. He must have watched just tons and tons of Korean films. And then Mary says, really, maybe I need to start watching Korean movies. And yes, Martin says, yeah, I think we both need to watch more. Probably meaning that they need to watch more Korean movies to hopefully, fortunately, learn to speak Korean better. Okay, that brings us to an end to today's actual talk conversation. Let's take a listen to it one more time.
I'm a big fan of Korean movies.
Okay.
Not so much TV, but certainly the movies here.
Do you like movies, like all movies, or just Korean movies?
I like all movies. I'm a bit of a movie buff. I like to go to the cinema. But I must say that Korean movies are really, really cool.
When you go to the cinema, do you like to go by yourself or with your wife or friends?
I must admit,
Yeah.
I like going on my own.
Okay, yeah, I have a friend who enjoys going by himself. He makes movies, and he went to film school. So one thing he does when he travels is he goes and watches a movie in every country that he goes to.
Wow, that's really cool.
I think it's kind of, I don't know, I just seem like, it seems to me like the experience of watching a movie would be the same no matter where you go.
No, I agree with your friend, actually.
Yeah.
When you go to the movie theater and you're on your own, you can really get involved in the movie. And especially with Korean movies, because Korean movies are quite dark.
Okay.
They're usually thrillers, and they usually involve a twist somewhere along the way that you have to pay attention to.
Okay.
Whereas I think Hollywood movies, they kind of spoon feed you the plot.
It's a little predictable
It's
sometimes.
very predictable, and the good guy always wins.
Okay.
In Hollywood movies.
So are you watching them with English subtitles, or is your Korean that good?
My Korean is not that good, unfortunately. Yeah, I can only watch them with subtitles. I'm getting better at it. And I had a friend who didn't live here in Korea, but he learned Korean purely through watching Korean movies.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe I need to start watching Korean movies.
Yeah, I think we both need to watch more.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time for us to review the vocab words and the patterns we learned in today's actual talk conversation. I hope you had a better understanding of the actual talk conversation the second time you listened to it. Okay, now let's move on to actual expressions. First word we have for you is buff. Buff. We talked about how Martin is a bit of a movie buff, okay? Now, buff means enthusiast, addict even, okay, or an admirer. A movie buff would be a person that is either addicted to movies or goes to watch movies on a regular basis, very frequently, very often, okay? So a person who really enjoys movies, likes movies, is a movie buff. Are you a movie buff? Okay, let's move on to admit. Admit. Stress goes right there on the second syllable. Now you're declaring something. So these are some synonyms for admit. Admit. Reveal is another good one. Confess, acknowledge are a few others. Moving on to dark. Now, if it's used as an adjective, especially, okay, we were talking about how Korean films tend to be, not all, but they have a tendency to be a bit dark. They're on the dark side. We're saying that they tend to be very sensitive, okay? They deal with sensitive topics or subjects. They're kind of gloomy, okay? Depressing even, kind of dark. Okay, and also twist. As I told you, we are taking a look at the twist in the noun form, not to twist something as in the verb. We're talking about plot twists, a spin, surprise, variation. We're talking about drastic changes to the plot. Okay, moving on to our final word, predictable. Pre meaning before, in advance. Predictable. Stress goes right there. And some other synonyms, aside from the ones I mentioned, anticipated or calculated. Okay, predictable means easy to foretell. Okay, easy to tell in advance. All right, let's move on to today's patterns then. Get involved in or with something or someone. Become associated with, especially emotionally. So here we go. Tom never liked to get involved with office gossip. Okay, so what does that mean? He really never enjoyed office gossip. When people were gossiping, talking about this person, that person, he didn't get involved. All right? He did not mix with them and share or gossip with them. Moving on to spoon-fed or spoon-feed someone, okay? You can spoon-feed someone or a person can be spoon-fed. This means to make something very, very difficult for them to do on their own because somebody else does everything for them. All right, here we go. He was spoon-fed by his parents and couldn't meet the challenges of college. Could not meet the challenges of college. So what are we saying in this sentence? He was spoon-fed by his parents, meaning his parents did everything for him. They did every single thing for him. So later on, when he grew up, he could not meet the challenges of college. He did not learn how to do things on his own. Okay? And that brings us to an end to today's actual expressions. Job well done, everyone.